These 1-minute prints could be the missing pieces that make or break your long prints. I show you 3 tiny hardware improvements and 2 software adjustments that are all extremely easy to add and have made my Sovol SV08 more reliable. Many of these hacks will also apply to any 3D printer, including the previous Sovol models, the SV06+, 7+, or T300. I'm Gergo, and on my channel, Gergo Print 3D, I share my adventures in 3D printing and laser working from week to week. As always, translation optimized subtitles and speed controls are at your disposal. Now, I love my SV08. It's a fantastic machine, but over the past 5 months, I've experienced my fair share of failed prints. Filament tangles, tool head covers popping off, Klipper crashes, and prints coming loose. It's frustrating and wasteful, but it doesn't have to be. Our mindset is always to learn from these failures and to try to mitigate them, perfecting our printers along the way. I hope to save you some headaches by showing these improvements here. So let's dive right in, starting with filament runout versus tangle detection. Some 3D printers, like my recently reviewed Tech Q1Pro from geekbuying.com, have both tangle detection, where the filament enters the printer, and runout sensor in the extruder. The Sovol SV08 also offers an official tangle sensor upgrade for a few bucks, but here's the thing, 99% of the time tangles are actually caused by the spool holder itself. Now, spool holders with bearings, like the ones on the SV06+, 7+, and SV08, make the spool spin a little too easily. This can lead to full spools unraveling and getting tangled. Don't get me wrong, bearings are great and essential for printing flexible filaments. In fact, on my other printers, the T300 and Q1Pro, which don't have bearings, I printed my own glide inserts out of slippery PETG to help them spin more smoothly and reduce dust from cardboard spools. But I digress. The bearings on the SV08 are a fantastic addition, but I wanted a way to temporarily disable them, other than using the infamous toilet paper roll hack, which I had to resort to during the long prints of my race car project video. Remember when I said this issue needs to be addressed later, maybe by adding some kind of a variable friction clutch control somehow? Comment below if you have any suggestions. Well, no one commented on that, but I figured out the perfect solution, and it's incredibly simple. By adding 2 3D printed rings, we can create a simple clutch-like system. This mod allows you to adjust the spool holder's friction using the screw. When the screw is loose, the spool spins freely, but tightening it will stop a full spool from unwinding too easily. The rings are best printed from TPE or TPU to make them grippy, and you just place them at both ends of the spool holder. I designed them to be just 2 layers thick, and you can see the exact dimensions on the screen here. But if you don't want to model them yourself, I've included the STL file in my macro collection on CALS 3D. This upgrade works for the SV06+, 7, and 7+ too, since they all use the exact same spool holder design with bearings. And for those without bearings, I got an alternative upgrade published on CALS 3D as well. After fixing the spool holder issue, let's move on to another common frustration, the tool head cover, which likes to pop off of the SV08. If you haven't experienced this yet, trust me, it's only a matter of time. This magnetically held extruder cover can easily get caught on a curled up piece of your print and pop off. If you're lucky, it just ruins your print. But if you're less fortunate, it could tear the wires of the part cooling fan or cause some other destruction. On the SV07+, my solution was simple. Like many others, I got rid of the bulky cover entirely. That not only solved the issue, but also gave me easier access to the extruder. The tool head lights on those models were easy to replace, so it wasn't a big deal. But on the SV08, things are a little bit more complicated. One of the part cooling fans would also need to be replaced if we removed the cover completely. Sovol tried to make the cover more convenient with magnets, but they just aren't strong enough to hold it securely. I've seen people use a zip tie to hold the cover, but that makes it as inconvenient as the SV07's cover was. Plus, it's wasteful. You'd have to replace the zip tie every time you need access to the extruder. So, I came up with a 3D printed clamp that solves this issue, and it's just as simple as my previous hack was. I recommend printing this one out of PETG, not only because it's strong, but also because it provides the right amount of flex. PLA would be too rigid, and TPU wouldn't be strong enough for this job. The clamp fits snugly around the extruder, and its house-shaped design makes it flexible enough to snap on and off easily. To attach it, hook it around the back above the smaller part cooler, and then pull it over the front from the bottom. Just a quick warning, don't orient the pointy end of the clamp towards the back. It may look nicer, but it could interfere with the back cooler and potentially cause damage. Don't ask how I know it. Let the pointy part stick out in the front where it won't get in the way, and to remove the clamp, just pull the loop slightly forward and down, and it'll pop right off. The design is simple, but it took a few prototypes to get the dimensions perfect. I've added this model to my SV08 macro collection on Calc3D. I'm starting to think I need a better name for that project with all these printable upgrades also in it. And for those using the SV07 and 7 Plus, my tool head light mount is also up there, but for that, there are better options available on printables.com. With the filament feeding smoothly and the extruder cover secured, there's still one more thing that enters the extruder, something far less obvious but just as disruptive. Before looking into this, please click that like button below this video. Thanks. Yes, another nightmare scenario, finding our printer frozen with a Klipper crash message glaring at us in the middle of a long print. If you're using the SV08, this might have already happened to you. One common cause of this is overheating in the controller. Don't worry, we'll address that in the next hack. But in my case, the culprit was something more elusive, an MCU extra timing issue. So what's MCU extra? Turns out it's the controller inside the toolhead, which communicates with the main controller via that long umbilical USB cable. After ruling out the usual suspects, overheating or overloading, which the logs confirmed weren't the issue, I turned my attention to possible electromagnetic interference EMI along the USB cable, especially since adding the metallic enclosure could have potentially increased the EMI between the power cables of the AC heated bed and the data cable going to the toolhead. This wasn't the first time I'd run into this kind of problem. In fact, I covered a very similar issue in one of my earlier videos, where I added a ferrite bead to the USB cable of my Clipperized SV06 Plus to resolve interference issues. I linked to that video here if you want to check it out for more context. I figured, why not try the same fix for the SV08? Since my SV07 Plus came with a ferrite bead straight from the factory, and I've never had communication errors on that machine, I decided to snap one onto the SV08's umbilical cable. And guess what? No more crashes. Unfortunately, this isn't a 3D printable solution, but you might have a ferrite bead lying around in your workshop or on an old USB cable. If not, I've added some AliExpress links in the description where you can get them online. It's easy to install, just snap it around the cable and let it do its job. Removing it is a bit trickier though. You'll need to lift the little tabs on the side. So, while this fix isn't as definitive as the previous hacks, adding a ferrite bead might still give you some peace of mind. This next hack isn't my original idea, but I was happy to apply it. Watch my unboxing and assembly video from day one. I couldn't stand the idle noise made by the stock controller board cooling fan at the bottom of the SV08. My quick fix was to swap it out for a larger CPU fan, similar to what I did on my T300 in an earlier video. In the very same manner, I even used a step-down converter to accommodate my 12-volt fan with the 24-volt output on the SV08's fan header. While this solution did reduce the fan noise, I wasn't entirely satisfied with the cooling effect. Remember this recent video when I had to use a desk fan to keep things cool during long prints of our life-size heads? But even if my CPU fan worked well, this solution wasn't clean enough for my taste, as the adjustable buck converter was buried deep inside the machine, making any adjustments a hassle. But here's the thing. The solution could be as simple as adding a few lines of code to our printer CFG. Turns out, Klipper can control the fan headers based on board temperature if set up correctly. Thanks to a recommendation from fellow YouTuber John Hansnecht, I was able to configure my controller fans to be managed by the temperature of the board. What's clever about this approach is that the board temperature depends on load. When the printer is idle, the MCU's temperature stays low, so the fans might not even turn on. As soon as you start printing and the controller load increases, the board heats up, triggering the fan. By then, with the stepper motors and extruder fans already making noise, the additional sound from the cooling fan becomes just another part of the concert. Unlike the setup on the SV06 where the part and controller fans were linked in a less controlled way, this configuration accounts for ambient temperature and other factors as well. I ended up removing the buck converter, but kept my 12-volt fan, limiting its power to 70% for safety. The fan spins when the printer powers on, but it stops as soon as Klipper finishes booting. Then it maintains the controller board's temperature below the default set value of 60 degrees. And you can easily modify this target temperature to your taste in the configuration lines or adjust it on the fly via the mainsail interface or even the HDMI Klipper screen. This solution works well with my custom fan mod, but if the stock fan had functioned this way from the very start, I probably wouldn't have felt the need to replace it at the first place. With the stock fan, it would be a bit louder than ideal, but since the printer stays quiet when idle, it wouldn't be that irritating. So be sure to check out John's video, linked in the description below for the configuration changes he suggested. I do wish the Klipper screen used on the SV07 and Klipperized SV06 could do something similar, but despite our best efforts, we haven't found a pin associated with Klipper screen fan control for those printers. It would have been fantastic for my cooling case fan mod that many of you are using with your Sovols. The final upgrade in this collection is really just an update to an existing macro, especially for those of you who ordered your SV08 with the HDMI screen or have added your own Klipper screen. In this earlier video, I compared the various screen options. In this other popular video, I tested the inductive probe and explained the importance of heat soaking the bed and probe to achieve a high quality first layer and prevent parts from coming loose later during the print. In that video, we added a simple heat soak command to the default mini screen of our SV08. Since I've started using the HDMI screen myself, I've now made an improved version of that heat soaking macro. This version works from both the macro page on the Klipper screen and within the mainsail web interface. Just like the original, this also allows you to input the bed temperature based on the filament type, but here the default 65 is a click away. This updated macro is now part of that SV08 macro collection on Call 3D, which I keep mentioning, with instructions for extending the printer's idle timeout in case you need to soak for more than 10 minutes. You can find the link to it in the description below. And this version of the macro will work just as well on any Klipper printer. In fact, I use it on my Klipperized SV06+, 7+, T300, and even the Q1Pro. Even though they might have slightly smaller beds or higher accuracy probes, they still benefit from heat soaking just the same. So these are the 5 hacks or improvements. I hope you can apply some or all of them, no matter which printer you own. If that's the case, please reward me with a like and subscribe for more. YouTube doesn't seem to respect subscriptions unless we also click the bell icon, so thank you if you do. And a special thanks to my very first supporters on ko-fi.com. Vlad for his generous one-time support, and Ole Urgast for becoming my first sustaining member. Your support allows me to focus on creating content that matters to you. By the way, my last 2 videos didn't get as much visibility as I'd hoped. My response to Maker's Muse 3D printing on YouTube challenge actually includes part 1 of today's tips, and this Acmer P1 presentation also has some 3D printing aspects to it. Check them out and go print 3D. Thank you for sticking around till the end of this Gergo Print 3 video.